Listening to a knowledge packed podcast can inspire you and make you want to take action. The hard part is you know the episodes connect, but it's hard to piece them together sometimes into an action plan. This hot seat episode is a mega episode where we go back through 3 previous hot seats that work really well together to help you take your next steps. This series is your Fix It mega episode, where you'll learn about fixing your niche, content, and funnel. By the end, you should not only feel inspired, but know what steps to take next. I'll be back at the end to recommend another episode. Enjoy.
Steve, we'll start with you, man. I would love to know just a little bit about who you serve and what you want to talk about today. And also, publicly, thank you for waking up at 4 a.m. to do this.
Yeah, look, my name's Steve. I live in a sort of rural town in Victoria, bottom of Australia, and I, s- I'm actually confused about who I serve at the moment. I get so many people hitting me up that aren't my avatar that I've been working with. You know, my avatar is active mums that are already training, but not getting anywhere, not seeing the results that they want, and I basically help them transform their body. And the sort of energy levels. That's not exactly what I put up on my page, but now I get a lot of men mostly hitting me up, and I'll be honest, I'm just really confused at the moment. Yeah,
Okay.
um, yeah.
What's the one thing you really want to dial in on then today?
It's funny when I wrote out what I wanted to do, it was like mostly content because I just don't feel like I get any traction to create conversations. You know, I'm really trying to get people to have conversations, and obviously people need to comment on things for me to be able to follow up with that.
Hmm.
You know, I used an example yesterday. I put up a post just asking who would be up for a challenge, and I had a whole heap of people just comment on something like that. But when I'm targeting my avatar, I don't really get that.
Okay. What did you say what did you say specifically when you said who's up for a challenge?
I'll bring it up.
Because you talked about how when you were kind of going through the exercises with us when you started, it was like, I'm going to be targeting women, but
Yeah,
you're saying that there's a lot more men signing up or that it's kind of split between the two, right?
yeah. I get a lot more sort of, for example, like when I'm working on Instagram, I get a lot more people, like a lot more men following me
Okay.
than women. And I'm not overly focused on that. It just seems very odd. Who would be up for a fun and exciting challenge that will test their skills and abilities?
Huh. What do you think? What aspect about that do you think got such a good response? Why do you think so many people responded to it?
From the responses, I think it was everyone saw it as a bit of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I heard something from maybe it was the CEO at Beachbody, like Beachbody, P90X, all that kind of stuff. And like him or hate him, you can't knock the fact that they're damn good at marketing fitness. And this was like a super old video that somehow made its way to YouTube. And it was him presenting in a boardroom to his team. And he said there's only 2 ways to market fitness. It's all that there is. So there's only 2 ways. He said that there's you can do this ways to market fitness, inclusive, everybody, let's have fun. You can do this. It's accessible. He says, or there's can you do this? It's a challenge.
mm,
P90X, insanity, 75 hard. And anything in between, what he said falls flat. And if you look at the history of kind of what they have marketed, you see that. And if you think about what programs really jump up and gain a lot of movement behind them, they very much fall into one of those two categories. You got curves, You've got Weight Watchers. There's, everybody, we can do this. We can do this together. It's accessible. It's easy. We'll take it step by step. Let's go. Or you man enough for this? You tough enough for this?
Mm.
And I wonder whether what you kind of tapped into there is that.
I think if people like know my sort of history, then that could be right, because I've been competitive in like strongman, but then I've gone out and taken all these challenges like Spartan races, and so people see all that stuff coming up in my feed all the time. Um, yeah, like the last 20 something years, I've been competitive in some sort of thing just for fun and that challenge,
Yeah.
So I think when people follow my feed, that's probably what they see.
I mean, niching down is such a complicated thing because it's not a demographic question. It's more a psychographic question. And two people that fit the same psychographic can be vastly different demographics.
Mm,
You can have a black woman from Alabama who's a shift nurse that has the same reasons and emotions and motivations as a 27-year-old strongman white guy from Australia.
yeah,
And it's the same psychographics. And I think where it's so hard to teach that. And a lot of the questions that I get and that I know a team gets here in the mentorship about niching and what market do I hit often fall into this kind of bucket of saying, oh, I work with X women who want to XYZ, who are between the ages of Y, who want to whatever, lose pounds, gain muscle, gain strength, gain confidence, whatever, right? Whatever they want to lose, whatever they
yeah,
want to gain. There's always one of those or multiple of those at the same time. But I think a lot of the time, it's not as much a demographic question, it's more a psychographic question. And with you, it definitely seems that way. Now, I'm not saying it's this way for everybody, but with you, it definitely seems that way. There was something about how you worded that challenge that even I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, man, I'm down. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a challenge.
mm,
And knowing your background, that's great. And so I wonder then whether that's something that you can, instead of just saying it's a challenge, you could just become like, the challenge guy, I help you overcome. I help you to kind of tug it in on the types of people that like physical challenges or feel like they need this type of physical challenge.
yeah,
Knowing that, hey, what's going to get them to enter in with you, it might be, physical challenge or training for whatever, strongman competition, Spartan race, whatever it is. And then they're going to continue on with you because why somebody starts doing a thing is basically never why they continue doing that thing for a long period of time.
yeah. That's why I've got so many people that have stayed with me for so long, because they come in for something and then they find other things, which is like me. Yeah.
So what are those things? I mean, can you create a business where you're basically just inviting people to go on the journeys with you as you're doing these things? And almost map out the years. I mean, it doesn't have to necessarily be with you, but almost map out the years. I think about a call that we did, it was a while back. God, it was about marathons. And he became the go-to, somebody in the mentorship here, he became the go-to for helping people prepare physically for the Chicago Marathon. So it wasn't even all marathons, it was one specific marathon. And then you can expand that to more and more marathons. But the nice thing about that is I really like models, particularly business models, where you have very distinct periods of the year or periods of the month where you know that you're going to prepare a very particular way because that allows you to build in both expectancy and repeatability into what you're doing to be able to iterate on it and improve on it. If you're always making up something new over and over again, you can never learn from anything you've done and improve upon it. But if
Yeah.
you know that, let's say, for example, every year there are these 6 different challenge-based events that happen worldwide. Now, these could be things that you engineer. It could just be like all of my clients are doing this one physical challenge at this time. And if you want to train for it and participate, you got to sign up now because I need at least 2 months to prepare you for it. Whatever. It might
Yeah.
be a particular strongman event. It might be something that is going on in one area. But the nice thing about that is if you pick things that repeat every year, and there are always areas where, I mean, really the reason that people do these things is not because they think it's how to get healthy. It's because it's a challenge to overcome.
Yeah.
What you can then do is you can work backwards from that event. And you can say, okay, well, I know that this event is happening on whatever, September 13th. So I'm making up a date. This event's happening on September 13th. I know that it's going to take me, call it 90 days to prepare somebody for this. And so, okay, well, I need 90 days of training, and then I need 30 days of basically marketing to get people into that training group. So you're going to start 4 months before September 13th.
Mm.
And what that does that's really nice is it builds in that urgency. It builds in that cutoff all throughout the year. And it's a reasonable cutoff, right? It makes sense that you have it. Everybody gets that you have it. And that allows you to effectively launch your training to the same psychographic in different ways for different events, multiple times a year. And then whichever ones just work well, you can just find more stuff like that and dump the ones that don't. And you can keep improving upon that launch, and you can reuse content, of course, each time. The content that
Yeah.
works well, you reuse. The content that doesn't, you throw out and take lessons from the content that does work well. And that's how you start to scale it with other people too, is you can, of course, over time, don't need to be the person doing that. And then the next step is to uh, work with the organizers of the event. The organizer of a strongman competition, those things don't make much money.
Yeah, they
So
don't.
you say to the organizer of the strongman competition, uh, I've already prepped 3 people for this competition. Here's who they are. They were in the thing last year. Um, I'd love to prep more people for the next one. I'm going to bring more people into it, but also to perform better. Anybody who you send to me, I'll give them a 30% commission.
Yeah.
And you get the organizer of the event to build that too. And so you can kind of build off of it that way. How does that all land?
That makes me smile a lot more, I think,
Okay. That's
more
cool.
than
Why is
anything,
that?
because um, just because I'd never really thought about it like that. I service in face-to-face stuff because I still love my face-to-face stuff,
Mhm.
and so I still service mostly active mums. And so when I came in, I was thinking, well, that's probably who I serve best because they're the ones that sort of gravitate towards me for some reason. But yeah, no, this sounds a lot more exciting.
I would think that they probably gravitate towards you if they get a chance to talk to you because you're a sweetheart. But, you're also like a big, hella strong, physically impressive dude.
Yeah,
And somebody on the internet is not going to be able to tell that you're a sweetheart when they're coming across you. They'd have to
yeah, I
talk to
think
you
that's a
or be
big,
introduced to
yeah,
you.
that is the biggest thing I keep finding, because it's very hard to like use what I do to promote servicing women, I find.
Mhm.
So no, this is exciting
Yeah, and I mean there would
because
still be
it's
women part of this. I don't think it
there
necessarily
are
needs to be.
lots.
No, there'd be tons.
Yeah,
I mean,
heaps.
holy crap, man! It's so cool that the gym that I used to train out of in Toronto here, it's called Torque. It's one of the biggest powerlifting gyms in the city, and it's incredible. I mean, they have a powerlifting team and whatnot, and it's men and women. You see like 60-year-old. I met her 60-year-old Chinese grandmother, and she's just powerlifting, man. Oh God, she's impressive. It's just so cool to watch. And it's many of them found this later. I mean, she found it just in the last like 5 years. Uh, what an amazing thing to do, an
Yeah,
amazing thing
one of
to
my
work with
kids here is
people.
going over to America's Strongest Teen, so he's going over
Mm.
there in July, and so that's basically what I do face to face. And so yeah, this is I don't know why I never thought about something like this.
Yeah, I mean, work backwards from these events, knowing that after the event's over, like somebody isn't just going to stop.
Yeah,
Especially if they've had a good experience. I mean, maybe some will, but like most won't. Especially if they've good
yeah,
experience. A lot of the work that we do in the mentorship is teach you how to future pace with people. You can say even a couple weeks into the training, it's like, hey, I was just thinking, like, you thought about what you're going to do after the strongman competition in September? Oh yeah, tell me more about that. Oh, why do you want that?
yeah.
And then you're not having that strict, you're continuing on with them afterwards. Cool, man. Well, Stephen, let me know how it goes, dude. I'm excited
That's
for
excellent.
this.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Me
you bet.
too.
And thanks
Thank
again
you.
for waking up. Cool. Well, I
Yeah.
got your form, so I know what you want to talk about and stuff. But why don't you, for everybody else, just kind of introduce yourself, talk about who you are, what you do, real quick, and then what you want to talk about. And we'll get into it.
Uh, I'm a business owner. I have my own gym with a team of other 3 coaches. We go mostly into mobility, flexibility, and strength, like overall, like pretty mixed up. I teach people skills, different skills like gymnastic skills or flexibility skills, and also do a lot with pain. I mean, it naturally, the niche naturally found me, and I've been getting a lot of clients like that. So it's an easy win on the referral side because my business has been growing mostly on referrals. Because
Mhm.
like locally, I'm pretty well known, and I have a huge networks in different areas with people. So even with like medical professionals, so they send me people all the time. So on the offline, it's been doing really good. I started with the training program of the OTM in June. Since then, I've been doing okay, but I haven't been really pushing it because I wanted to set up a structure, a
Yep.
good foundation to be able to scale and know I can handle the workload. So far, I work like 8 to 10 hours a day on the floor, plus online, plus managing the team and all that. I have 2 kids. You know how it is, and I've signed like about 20 people. A couple have signed off, but I've signed like 20 people for the online. I I get like 2 to 3 new people per week, I guess. And talking about the foundation, I've gotten 2 other coaches on board for helping me out in the long run.
Mhm.
So now as I get more into the sales part and more into the content creation part and start converting more people, I'll have the process of me converting them and then just like offsetting it to the other coaches to
Right.
do the programming.
Okay.
So yeah,
So
that's me.
what are we chatting about today then?
So in regards to, I mean, I'm also interested into growing some audience outside of Instagram. Instagram is great, but I don't want to be like too dependent on one medium.
Mhm.
And unlike yourself, I mean, I don't have like things like books. I mean, I started the podcast a couple of years ago, but I haven't been very consistent on it. So I was interested, just the last thing in you said about trying to bring people onto your podcast. In your case, or what's your idea with converting people into any offer or product that you have through the podcast? Like, is it doable in the long run if you focus on growing a podcast and then selling people stuff or coaching services and things like that? Or
Podcasting is podcasts are uh podcasts are the hardest medium to grow,
Hmm,
unquestionably. They take the most amount of time, they grow the slowest. Because if you think about it, there's basically no discovery mechanism. Spotify, Apple, iTunes Store, like they're not going to help you. Like there's no discovery mechanism. And somebody has to listen for 30 minutes or an hour before they decide whether it's good. There's no like sample really where they can do it. I mean, there's maybe like a trailer, but there's no sample really where people can share it. So they're an unbelievably difficult medium to grow on their own. I restarted my podcast about a year ago now. We're like 110 episodes in, whatever that is, twice a week. And but I decided that I was going to spend a year growing an audience somewhere else first before I started a podcast. And then I was going to systematically shift that audience to the podcast, which is what I'm doing now.
Yeah, because like you grew your Instagram like hugely before you started pushing into the podcast.
Yeah, because Instagram, it's just Instagram, there's discovery mechanism. Instagram, you can build an audience quicker and faster. It's a much looser audience. It's a much less valuable audience. A podcast audience is so here's what I say about this, right? And I'm not the only person to say this. This is pretty well established. Podcasts are the hardest to grow, but the most valuable to have. There is no better and no more valuable audience, I think, in the world than having a popular podcast. Not YouTube, not anything like that. Because if you think about the consumption habits, you're with somebody multiple hours a week in their ears, going directly into their brain. You're talking to them like a friend would talk to them. YouTube, you're a television show, right? Somebody's watching you. Somebody might be watching you distracted, doing something else. A podcast, they're taking with you on their day. There's so much subconscious selling that goes in there, trust that gets established with it. So for anybody who has the capacity, I think a podcast is an unbelievable platform to work to grow. Greg, I know you're working hard on that, but it's not something that's going to get you customers today. Nothing close to it. And if you don't have an audience somewhere else, you either need to make yours into an interview podcast, and know that it's also going to take a long time, because the majority of people are going to be going there for the people you're interviewing and not for you. Or you need to build your audience somewhere else. And you could be podcasting at the same time just to get better at podcasting, but you can't look at the numbers and the stats and the growth. Like it's going to be so slow. Like I don't look at podcast numbers and growth. We had somebody who wanted to sponsor it, and they wanted to know our downloads and stuff like that. And so I connected Amber to them via email, and I was like, Amber, don't CC me on the response. I don't want to know how many downloads we have. It's so completely irrelevant. So I don't know. Does that answer your question? Like,
that was a side note, because I was listening to you talking about the podcast and like you shifting people there, and going back to Instagram. I'm
also trying to build like an author expert platform, right? Like I'm not. If my priority right now was to build this mentorship and get as many people into this mentorship as possible, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. I could be much more effective at that. So, my example, it's like, what an expert, if there's an expert who tells you to do something that they're not doing, it doesn't necessarily mean that you should distrust their advice. It just means that they understand the rules of engagement, and they've decided for their goals that one way is right, for your goals a different way is right. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with either of those. So what I'm trying to do is largely different than what many, if not all of you, are doing.
Yeah, exactly. And going back to Instagram, I have this one issue. When I started the account and I grew it to like a decent number, in the beginning, most of my followers, because I'm bilingual, my native tongue is Bulgarian, so I have like mixed following of locals and international.
Yep.
But in the beginning, there was more engagement from the international audience, and then over time, like the local audience took over. And now, if I look at the engagement on likes, comments, on stories, especially, like I see prevalence on the local audience. However, not that I'm not happy with converting locals into online clients, but just because of like what I can charge locally and what I can charge internationally,
Right.
I'm looking to kind of like get more international clients.
Right.
And what would be a best way to bring back the engagement or some following from the international? Because I know the algorithm, I think I heard it somewhere. If more locals follow your content, it's going to be pushed more into the locals and not into the international. So is there anything like that, or how I can go about that is something I've been wondering about.
I mean, what the algorithm wants and doesn't want, I can't even tell you. I could tell you what humans want and don't want.
Yeah.
You know, social media works off of what's called nodes of connection, and so it's not that it's like, oh, there's locals following it, so we're going to show it to more locals. It's that the people who are following and engaging with you are connected to other people who are probably more local. And so it just follows those nodes of connection. That's really the extent that you need to know of it. I mean, the biggest thing that I see with your account is like, you're not telling me why I want to do these things.
What do you mean?
Right? Like get better shoulders. Why? Why do I want to get better shoulders?
Also,
what do I want to do?
So you're saying that the hook should be stronger in the beginning.
Yeah, like what do I want to do? Why do I want to do a back bend?
Okay.
Why do I want to use a kettlebell for mobility? Like for people who aren't already sold on what you do, which is the majority of people, because just how many customers have you worked with ever? And you have 9,600 followers. So by definition, the majority of them are don't really know what you do yet. They have no idea, like why is this important for them in their life? Who are they? And they don't need to be one person necessarily, but like, for example, wings routine for shoulder mobility. Like, you want to know why that's important to me? How old are you kids? I saw one of them super cute with you at the beginning. How old are your kids?
Yeah, one is 2.5 and the other one is 8.5.
8.5, boy or girl?
Both are boys.
So those maniacs are probably jumping on you like crazy, aren't they?
Yeah.
And you don't want to snap your shit up because you're not flexible enough when they're jumping and pulling on your arms, right?
Yeah.
It's a pretty damn good reason to do a shoulder mobility with wings.
Should I use that? Should I use that convincing into the caption, or how do I integrate it into a short video like that?
Show your 8-year-old maniac kid jumping on you and pulling on your arm.
Okay.
And then you look straight at the camera and you'd be like, you want to know why this isn't snapping my shit up? Because I do this. And then you show your wing routine.
Okay.
Tell me how I know. Because I've got a maniac 6-year-old who does the same thing. Like, this kid just jumps on us out of nowhere. Like, if we weren't strong, I'd have thrown out my back many times over by now.
Yeah, because I have a client who had two herniated discs because she was trying to save her kid from breaking her head or something like that. Just like quick snap, and then yeah, it's relevant for life for sure.
Story, man. Oh my God, tell me that story. Like,
yeah,
don't show her, but take a stock image of somebody who is like a back injury and show it and have it like fading out with like sad music and be like, this is how this happened to a client of mine.
Okay.
And then here's what we did. Here's what we're doing to help her. Kettlebells for mobility, like what, swing your kid around. Like, hey, I go to the park and all the other dads are sitting down on their phones looking tired, and I'm sitting there swinging my kid, and then their kids come over and want to be swung, and all of a sudden now I'm swinging the kids back and forth. Here's what I do in the gym to make sure that I'm that dad at the park.
Yeah, I do actually like that personalization and that like involving like the family stuff. That's why, because like just posting like rigid content like this, sometimes might push people away, as you say. That's why sometimes in my stories, like I do post stuff like family stuff, just like you do, because I do believe that we're human first and then professional second.
Yeah.
So
It's who
that's
you
like a,
are, right?
yeah, it's a good idea. Like I keep telling this to clients that they want to be functional in their lives and not just train for the sake of training. But yeah, just like I haven't thought about like just uh turning it into videos and content this way.
Yeah, like you got like you're doing dips with what is that, 20 kilos?
Yeah.
It's probably about the weight of, well, your 8-year-old might be a bit more than that, but
Mm.
I
The
mean, have
problem
like do this with like a kid on your back.
the problem would be for them to just like hang on for 2 seconds while I do this. But
Yeah,
yeah.
I know. But I mean, it doesn't necessarily all have to be about the kid. I guess my point
Yeah, yeah,
is with
yeah,
all
yeah.
of these, like anytime you're like, hey, I want to show the shoulder, because you're with clients so often,
Yeah.
it's got to be like infinite ideas. Like every time you do a routine for your client, or whenever you're with clients, like have a page on the back of your clipboard and just write down like shoulder mobility routine. And
Mm.
then when you go home or when you have a break at the gym or anything like that, you think about, you're like, okay, why are people going to care about this? Why does this matter? Is the question that I always ask. Why does this matter? And I mean, I don't know the answer for all of these, like back bends. I don't know. Like, why does this matter? Like
It,
sex
it,
stuff?
it,
Like, I don't know.
uh, it's just a skill, and it's not just pain related. What I do sometimes it's just like skill work like this. People are finding me for being able
But
to get more flexible. So
yeah, like this is pretty cool. Jesus. Jesus. What is your body doing? Uh God damn, man. So that's pretty impressive.
exorcism.
It is a little bit, yeah. That would actually be funny. Is like put like the Exorcist like video in the background of you doing that.
Yeah, yeah, and going back to the fun part, I've noticed that because I have like an open Facebook group for my local following,
Yeah.
and I noticed that when I post some like educational content, the engagement is not almost like non-existent. And then when I post funny stuff like memes and stuff, but if
Yeah.
it's like funny stuff related to training, yeah, that might grow the account for sure. But how relevant will the following be in terms of like serious leads?
I mean, if you do like kind of what Joe did just before, right? Like it's still relevant to what he talks about. It's not just funny
Mm,
stuff for the sake of funny stuff. Um, I think I think you lose some relevance, but I think you grow big enough that losing a little bit of the direct relevance and conversion is maybe not the end of the world. Like at some point, you
mm,
just need to get new people in there, and then you can really educate them. You know,
mm,
that's like top of the funnel versus middle of the funnel type stuff.
mm,
Top of the funnel is always going to be superficial. It's always going to be, uh, call it infotainment. Like it's always going to edge more towards sort of entertainment, and then as they get deeper, it's going to go more towards information education. But I think you can. I mean, I don't think everyone has to be funny, but like if you're doing backbends like that, where my first reaction is like Jesus, then yeah, man. Like you said yourself, you're like exorcism. Like just there's a book that I read a long time ago that I think it's a wonderful book if you want to write. But it's Stephen King on writing. But one of the
mm,
pieces of advice that he gives in there is if you ever want to say something in your writing, if you ever think of something that's like funny or creative or analogous to whatever you're saying, he says, say it. Put it in the first draft. Don't even think about it. You could always take it out when you go and edit the thing. But in almost every case, you won't, because it's going to be better than everything else you do afterwards.
mm.
The minute that you see that, you're like, yeah, exorcism. You're like, exorcist. That's hilarious. And just put it in. Like A, it's one piece of content. So, what's the worst that can happen? But also, that's you, man. Nobody's going to buy from you on the internet because you showed a shoulder drill. Sorry.
Mm.
There's people who are better looking than you. There's people who are better looking than me. There's people who are more flexible than you. There's people who are more flexible than me and stronger and more ripped and are better at marketing than both of us, than all of us put together, like that are showing shoulder drills. Nobody's going to buy from you because you showed a shoulder drill. Who are you? Right? Let that fly. And if you have any, so that question of why does this matter? Well, it could be, why does this matter to me? Because that's also why it's going to matter to other people. But it could also just be like, why is this funny? Like, I do this weird stuff that a lot of people think is weird. Like, let's play on that.
Okay. Yeah, two ways to go about that.
Yeah.
One is like the emotional connection about the outcome that people are looking for, and then entangling this with like my personality and my life and why I do stuff. And I pretty much do it for the same reason: longevity, family stuff, being active outside the gym.
Yep.
So yeah, definitely makes sense.
Do you know this guy? See if it pops up. Yeah, here, Amir. I've chatted with him a bunch of times. Do you know his stuff? He has 1 million
Who's
followers
that?
now. Jesus.
Yeah. I know the guy. Yeah.
Yeah. So look at the kind of stuff that he does. Like, it's just like one of my favorite ones that he does is like what happens if even just like, you know, right? Here's a perfect idea.
Yeah.
So you can do stuff like that. I mean, it's not even anything that he did. My favorite are the ones where he does it, where it's just like, what
if we live like we train.
Those are hilarious. Yeah, these, if we live life how we train. Right.
Yeah.
And it's just, you know, he's making the same kind of points.
Yeah.
But he's doing it in a really, really effective way.
Yeah, I guess it's just like at one point it gets like more natural to be creative like this once you've done it a few hundred times, like he has.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you got to do it for a long time. Like when I discovered him, he had, you know, 300,000 or something. I haven't looked at his account for a while. But even if you look at like, you know, so he has 1 million followers, but still, like if he puts anything that's promotional, 600 likes, 16 comments, right? Like he still gets 0 engagement on anything promotional. Like that's just the internet. That's just Instagram. So this is a guy with 1 million followers that are like real engaged followers. And you know, it's still his promo stuff superficially doesn't get any engagement. Like this has 396 likes. He has 1 million followers. What's the engagement percentage on that?
Yeah.
Right. But that's fine because he runs a business.
Yeah. And I'm sure. I mean, even if he doesn't get engagement on the post, he gets a lot of like messages, DMs and stuff like.
He might. So. Yeah, I don't know enough about his business. We just shoot the shit most of the time, so I don't know enough about his business to really know. Cool, man. Does that give you some direction, some sort of ideas with stuff to do?
Definitely, because like this is something that's more authentic to me, as you said, and who I am, and I want to. That's why I've been being hesitant on creating content that's rigid like that, because it feels robotic a little bit.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel natural for sure.
Cool.
So that's one. Do I have a little more time, because I have one more question?
Let me just answer. Is it good to have 2 separate accounts for 2 different countries? I live in Scotland and can speak Turkish. Nah, man.
Yeah, I can't do that. Like even from the like time management and content creation, managing both accounts.
One account is hard enough. One account is hard enough. Choose. I think there's opportunity in both. I think there's probably more opportunity in foreign markets like Turkish markets, but you also may not be able to charge quite as much. So if you want to work for more like a volume play, you go for like a Turkish market, or in your case, Radislav, like a Bulgarian market. But if you're going for more of a premium play, you kind of got to go for an English or a French or a Spanish speaking market.
Yeah.
Yeah, real quick. I do have to run because I have another call, but I'm happy to go for another minute or two.
About the book stuff, like, because like I'm in the process of starting to write a book for myself, like with the share the stuff that I already teach with other coaches coming to me, laid out for clients as well. So in regards to the book, like what's your process of like promoting the book, and then just a few quick steps. I mean, it doesn't have to be too long, to promoting the book. And then how do you, except for the just monetizing from the book, if any, how do you optimize the leads and
let's do
emails
a whole
and stuff like
separate
that?
call on this.
Okay.
This is not even an hour conversation.
Okay.
This is a 2-day conversation.
Okay.
Let's do a whole separate call.
Yeah, because again, I want to set a good foundation to when I have the book ready, like launch it properly.
I will send you a recording. Is anybody else interested in it? I can send it. I can put it in the group, but I can send you a recording. Okay, I'll put it in the group of a call that I did with a couple friends. Now it's a few years ago, but it's about book publishing and what to do beforehand and stuff like that. But I think this is worth like its own call where I can share a lot of the stuff, a lot of the ways that I think about it, and a lot of the stuff that I'm doing. I mean, I have a 15-month marketing cycle for this next book that's coming out. Probably more. It'll probably be closer to a 2-year marketing cycle. And that's before the book comes out. And that doesn't include the engineering of the book itself to self-propagate. And that doesn't include marketing the book after it's out, which will be another 2 to 3 years minimum. So like, I think if you write a book, you should be committing to 5 years.
Okay.
Or don't write a book, because writing a book's really hard.
Okay.
But if you want to do it, it can be life-changing, but it's a lot. Okay, I'll put that link in the group for you then. I'll tag you specific, but I'll put it in the group for everybody else.
All right, thanks.
Zach, you were up first, dude. The way that we do this is real quick. Give us just a little bit of an overview, if you don't mind, who you are, who you serve, and what you want to talk about today.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on, taking the time. To appreciate you diving in like one-on-one. So thought this was really cool. So I've been coaching for 7 years, a little over 7 years in person, and have been coaching online pretty much since like right when COVID happened. My avatar, my ideal client are entrepreneurs who want to lose belly fat, build muscle, and boost their natural energy levels without wasting a lot of time and energy. And then what else did you ask me for? How business is going, or
entrepreneurs, men, women, doesn't matter.
Yeah, I do men and women. So I don't really distinguish between either one, but usually late 30s into the 40s and kind of mid to late 50s. That's typically what, obviously I have clients outside of that, but
right. Okay, very cool. What are we talking about today?
Good question. So obviously, or not obviously, but I've been with OTM for about 10 months. So there's been a ton of growth and progression of the business from when I first started. Like, I didn't even know what my avatar was when I first started. So there's been a ton of growth. I'm really happy where the business is now, but I'm starting to notice, where the kind of bottlenecks are, where at least I think the bottlenecks are in the business.
Okay.
And so I'd really value, your perspective and everyone's perspective on, is this actually where a bottleneck is, or is it in my own head? And do I
Right.
need to keep pushing, or like, so I'm kind of there a
Mhm.
little bit. So I guess I'm more looking at the front end of like the sales funnel. So like my marketing and then conversations from that.
So
I
that
feel
was going
really
to be
good
my
on,
first question.
yeah, go ahead.
The client service stuff, you feel really good about. You're happy with
Yeah.
the load. You're happy with the time. You're good with that. We don't need to talk about that. We don't need to even hit that. It's more
At least for right now, for like how
okay.
many clients that I'm dealing with. I'm working in person
Yep.
about 25, 30 hours a week still. So it's a big balance between like scaling it, still keeping my in-person business going, managing that time. So for right now, I'm able to take care of my clients at a really high level. I get really
Yep.
good feedback, good client retention. I feel really good once I get on a sales call,
Yep.
close like 40, 50%. So I think really it's, and again, this is where I'm not sure if this is actually where the issue is, but I feel like how I'm marketing, either my messaging, how
Mhm.
I'm delivering it on the platform, and then obviously that
Top of the funnel
translating to
stuff.
how many like leads am I able to get, hot leads,
Right.
versus cold ones. And so
Right.
that's kind of where I'm at now. And
Okay.
obviously I can go into more detail.
Yeah, well, let's dissect the problem a little bit. I agree with you on the training side. That's cool. If you're happy with the client load, if you're happy with the work, uh, that's wonderful. It will break. I'm a big proponent of not fixing things before they're broken, especially when it comes to having too much business. I've definitely fallen into the trap in the past of uh planning for too much business before I had too much business. And as a result, then never getting to the point where I had too much business because
Sure.
the time was spent
Yeah.
on that. It's a lot easier to fix problems when you have too many customers and too much money than it is to try to proactively solve problems before
Sure.
you have those things. So you just have more options. So that's cool. Happy that we can kind of leave that. I guess my question comes down to, what are we looking at here? More top of the funnel, more middle of the funnel. There's Eugene Schwartz and Breakthrough Advertising, which is kind of like the gold standard, like advertising book, super, super dense, but worth the read if you have a month or so of time. Talks about the 5 stages of awareness of a customer. And it's, unaware, doesn't really matter. But then you've got, I might get these stages wrong a little bit. Then you've got problem aware, solution aware, product aware, and then like ready to
Yeah.
go. That the last one is named differently by him. But most fitness consumers are, somewhere around product to solution aware, where sorry, somewhere around problem to solution aware. They're not problem, but they're not product aware yet. Like they know that they have a problem. They might think that they know what the solution is,
Right.
or they don't know what the solution is, but they know what the problem is. They don't know what the product is yet. That they're not really actively comparing solutions, really. And so when I think about top of the funnel type material, which is what you're talking about, I mean, across social media or even just outreach type things you're doing or through people that you're largely trying to bring people through that continuum. But the true top of the funnel stuff, and where I think people get wrong a lot of the time with social media, and this is, after kind of reviewing your platform beforehand, is trying to create content for people that are much farther along in the funnel than they actually are. So
Sure.
talk to me about what you're creating then on, I mean, Instagram is kind of your main thing. Instagram, Facebook,
Yeah.
Instagram's kind of your main thing.
Yeah. Instagram, I mean, I make everything for Instagram, but I just have Facebook links. So whatever I post
Sure.
on Instagram shows up on Facebook, at least for right now. But, so the strategy has changed a little bit recently because of the low amount of engagement
Mm-hmm.
that that I was seeing, and then it was hard for me to tell if that was the holidays or just the past couple months or whatever the case. But so I was doing a lot more still pictures and
Yep.
just Twitter, like Twitter quotes.
Yep.
And I noticed maybe since like the summer and through the fall, those Twitter, at least for me, the Twitter quotes have just like gotten like zero reach. They used to get some engagement and people would share them on their stories, and so that kind of helped me get more views and more engagement. It's just like fallen dead now.
Yep.
At least that's what I've seen. So I've switched and trying to go back to doing more reels, with more value and starting to actually really try and highlight problems and solve, and give solutions and things like that, which I've done a lot better recently. They just take so much more time and planning.
It takes more time and planning, but you don't need to do it as often. Yeah. I think
Sure.
I think it's better to do, fewer better when it comes to
Yeah.
content these days than more worse. There's just so much being put out there and people are
Yes.
shut off. What I found particularly with Instagram lately is that the longevity of something that hits seems to have been extended. Stuff that does well seems to do well for like weeks now, whereas that was never the case before. And so it's worth it to put a bit more into almost fewer pieces.
Yeah.
But when I talk about like more top of the funnel stuff, what are you a champion for? Like, that's my question. Not what problems
Sure.
can you
Not like
solve.
what the medium is, but
yeah, like I don't think that the medium matters. I mean,
Sure.
you don't need to look very far past my account to know that like janky written content that's not designed well and not exciting to look at still can
Yeah,
work.
dude. I tried to copy you and it didn't work, and I'm like, what the fuck?
Well, but I mean, I've built my entire platform on that, and
No, I get it.
I've written a couple thousand words every single day for the last 13 years to this audience.
For sure.
Like,
And it comes through.
There's stuff behind the scenes, but I've also just been doing it for years, and built an audience that likes that type of thing. So I don't think actually that the medium matters. I think that they can all work. What I do think matters is meeting people where they're at in order to try to take them where you want to take them. And increasingly, it seems that social media, front-facing social media, is very superficial, is very, very top of the funnel. And it's almost better to be a champion of an idea and then promise the solution as like the next stage, what you're gonna like teach them after they opt in or after they have a conversation with you. You almost need to earn the right to teach. Like I do it a little bit on my page, but I mean, if you look at like the reach of my material, I could put out a post that doesn't really say much that doesn't really help that many people. But is very much a champion of an idea that is an important idea. And I mean, it'll reach 500,000 to 1 million people. I can put out a teaching post that helps people actually solve the problem that I was a champion around, and it'll reach 40,000. I mean, it's that different. And so if you think about that as a percentage, I mean, you're looking at it as 5-10% of the reach. So if you've got 2, 3, 4,000 followers on a page, you're not reaching many people at 5-10%. You almost need to stick to those champion posts to build up, and then you've earned yourself potentially a way to go deeper on the front end. But
and
I don't even think you need to.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that seems like I feel like sometimes, or I need to put more thought into like kind of what you're saying, like what's my champion, what am I trying to help my avatar with?
What do you care about? What do you care about? I mean,
I feel like I get too generalized, and then it falls flat, and nobody wants to hear that,
It falls flat,
and then I don't have people to reach out to.
Being generalized is safe.
That's where I feel like it's stuck.
Yeah, being generalized is safe.
It's too safe.
Like I put a post up celebrating my mom because she's kept active, and you look at that and it's just like you have people being like, oh my God, like this is I don't even know what they're saying. But there are some people who were, their own situation meant that they couldn't be active as mothers or whatever, right? And so it's if I was much more generalized, the message would have had much smaller of an effect, and it would have been safer, and nobody would have said nasty things about me. But at the same time, that message, which I think is a very important message, has reached something like 1.5 million people now. And if I was generalized, it would have fallen flat. So yes, very specific, and also like opinionated about stuff that you care about and your people care about.
Yeah.
So, you work with entrepreneurs who probably have a lot of competing priorities, who
Yes.
are very, very good at convincing themselves to sacrifice today in order for a better tomorrow.
Yeah,
And
very all or nothing. Very, I'm either gonna do it 100%, or if I can't do it 100%, then I'll do it later.
and there's no
There's
later,
very
is
much
there?
that black and white.
There might not be
Right.
a later. And there's or later is always going to be pushed back.
Yes.
That is a powerful message. Any time when you can bring up kind of fear of the unknown and avoiding like fear of the unknown as a message that you're championing people to avoid, you're going to get a really good response. And that could be done as a reel. That could be done. I mean, I'm just
Sure.
lazy, if I'm completely honest, with my content these days. I'm just so
That's why I wanted to
focused.
do it.
Well, I'm just so focused on book writing at this point that I
Yeah.
decided to look at my social media as a lagging indicator of other
How your writing's
success
doing.
and
Yeah.
how the writing's doing. But I've only earned that right because I've focused on it for so long, right? And so I'm not necessarily recommending that, but I could easily take the stories that I've written there about my dad, about my mom, about my wife, that are very much of this idea that you're talking about. And you can literally just copy them and just insert your people. You can give a name of a client of yours. You can, I'm not making it up. These are true stories about my wife and my dad or whatever. But they're championing the idea that I want to champion. And so you could just copy that format. It's a perfect format. Like every social media post that really does well follows the exact same format, which is hook, story, punch. 1, 2, 3. Hook,
Yeah.
story, punch. And the quicker you can do that, the better. And so when those stories that have performed the best for me, I actually do it in 1 line each. Copy it, dude. But and take people who have done well in your life and do it as video. Like if I wasn't so lazy, all that I would do is I would talk those posts into a video and put some B-roll or something in them and do them as a reel, and they would crush.
Yeah. I think I just have to like sit down ahead of time and actually like plan out what do I want, what kind of story do I want to tell, versus now it's just more almost just, all right, I got to put something out today, and if I don't have something planned, then it just ends up being I'll like just revert to doing a Twitter post because it's easy and I can get it done quick, so I think that's holding me back.
So here's the process then. I like mind mapping type exercises. Just write down on a piece of paper, just write down the word fear in the middle. And out of it, you're going to write, call it, choose 5 clients that you can think of off the top of your head that are super representative. It could be in person, could be online, that are super representative where you think, like, I like to work backwards from the best clients we've had. So if you're just like, if every client was like this, perfect. Like, I just want to clone you.
Yeah.
So some combination of, I just love them. I mean, that's just the reality is some people we just really love and some people we like, but don't love. And some people like my 4:30 at Tuesday for about 5 years, we just feel like that hour inches along a little bit, like we're on a treadmill and we look down at our watch and it's only been 7 seconds. But at the same time, and then you think of like the people who have spent the most amount of money on your services over time, and you're usually going to get some crossover. So you could figure that out like mathematically, or you can just think, who are the 5 people, right? Okay. Jim, Bob, Pam, whatever. So you're going to put their names as the next thing.
Yeah.
And then you're just going to say, what do they fear? And just draw a line to it. And just write, what do they fear? And you're probably going to get the same 1 or 2 things. And that one or two thing, whatever it is, could be your entire platform. Could be everything you ever say. Could be 1 or 2 messages. A lot of my platform is avoiding regret, right? Is keeping yourself healthy for future generations, being around. It's very powerful. So whatever you land on, tell stories about that. And that could be the hook in like everything that you do, where you're like, hey, here's an exercise that's gonna make sure that you can sit down and play on the floor with your kids when you're younger. Or when your kids are young, or when you're older, or whatever, your grandkids. Like I know you're not a grandpa yet, but like when you're a grandpa, you're still gonna want to do Legos on the ground with your kid, right? Here's a mobility sequence. Like you see how that same problem then now becomes much more meaningful, instead of just saying, here's a 5-part mobility sequence or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I feel like I do that sometimes. It just needs to be more consistent across the board.
Yeah.
But
cool. All right, that's your project.
sweet.
Appreciate you, man.
Thank you. One more thing, but
yeah,
I know I don't want to take up a ton of time. Yeah, how much do you think it actually affects like how much you're on stories in people's direct messages and stuff? Because I do notice if I do that more, it seems the content hits a little more. But it's such a hard thing to like actually put your finger on, right?
It absolutely makes an impact, but it doesn't come first. And if you what's the best way to put this? If you do that and you don't do a good job on your front facing stuff, it won't make a difference.
Yeah.
If you do a good enough job on your front facing stuff and you don't do that, it might work a little bit less good, but it'll still work really well. So don't stress about that other bit for that reason, I guess is what I'm saying.
Amber here. Thanks for listening in. This episode was from several group calls from Jonathan's online trainer mentorship, where we host hot seats every 2 weeks. The mentorship is where we take anyone doing from $1,000 to $20,000 a month or more and help them scale up. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in learning more about, please DM the word mentor to Jonathan on Instagram @itscoachgoodman. If you're looking for another episode to listen to right now, I'd recommend episode 158, How to Make Content That Connects. If your lead generation feels unreliable and DM conversations are low, it's time to take a look at your content and make sure it's connecting with your intended audience. In this episode, you'll learn how to find your core message, how to apply the bed of nails paradox for more engagement, and how over-delivering may be hurting your content. Again, that's episode 158, How to Make Content That Connects. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you next week.